Hi, so today I'm going to be giving some general tips on laying in a head. Hi, my name is Luis Escobar. I'm a storyboard artist on the Simpsons television show. I've been working on the show for over 25 years now, and I'm here to empower you. So this is a clip from a coaching video that I did. I was explaining head drawing to one of the people that I coach, and this I basically go over just general lay-in. I go over two methods. I go over one of the Houston methods that I like using, and then I also go over Loomis method. And I talk specifically about proportions. I talk about laying in, the simplification of laying in a head, and then I talk about some perspective things and some that go along with the proportion and how to structure a head and just placing all the things in a very specific way so that when you start actually constructing on top of the head, because this is just the the setup, like just the lay-in of a head, just setting it up so that you can start really refining and adding structure to the head. But this is very important. This is one of the most important parts of laying in a head is setting up all the pieces so that you shouldn't fail, so that you can have some kind of dimension to your head drawing. So that's what it's going to be about. It's just some tips on laying in a head so that when you tackle drawing a head, you'll have these things in mind, and hopefully this is going to help you further your head drawing. Okay, so without any further ado, here we go. The thing about heads is we're going to want to. There's so many approaches to drawing the head that it's almost a little bit overwhelming. Um, my general uh, formula for starting to draw the head is based off of Steve Houston. And um, what I like to do is to lay in the head as simply as possible at first. Sometimes when I'm drawing a figure, I simply just draw a circle where the head's going to be, right? But once I start really solidifying uh, direction of the head, where it's looking, um, all of that stuff, I tend to start with a simple formula that is based on the top of the head and the side of the head. And it's connected. This is the back of the head all the way down to the chin. So it's almost like an L with a C curve connected to it like that. Except it's not straight. These lines are not completely straight. They're a little bit concave. They're a little bit soft. And then this is the more extreme. Okay. So the logic that Houston uh, was trying to uh, explain to us. Oh, and by the way, and you could have the neck come off of this. It goes this way like that. And the neck it turns in this way and this way. So the logic behind this is you draw it looking up, you draw it looking down. So you immediately have a direction in the way that you're going to draw the head, right? And it really should be wider back here. Should be wider in the back than in the front. Doesn't have to be. It's better to err making it wider in the back. Okay, one of the reasons why is because the skull, and I'm saying this is in profile now, the skull is an egg shape rather than a ball. Okay. Um, and the Andrew Loomis method is different. The Andrew Loomis method begins with a ball. Even though a head is not a ball, Andrew Loomis makes it a ball. And the solution, and then he splits the head in half. This is profile. It goes down below the ball, and then it connects down here. This is the Andrew Loomis way. And the logic here is that here's halfway, about right here is where you cut off this ball, and now it's an egg shape. That's where you get the egg shape. Okay, so it's still the same idea. So we have the Houston method, which is just that, and then we have the Loomis method, which is a ball, and then you just cut that bit off. And right here we have the brow, and then halfway down we have the bottom of the nose, and then we have the chin. So this should all be equal. So let me do that. It's probably right there. And these are the proportion things. And this should be equal. So boom, boom, boom. Also, from the top of the head to this is the top of the brow. And then we have the nose. And then midway through here, we have the bottom of the lips. And then we have and then this lines up. And that's where the ear is. So that is these are the proportions, right? This is the Andrew Loomis method. But this is the Houston method. Again, I'm showing you both just in case you want to kind of play around with either one. So far I've only talked about, and this gets cut in half, and we have that. And then the proportions still are the same if you're doing it this way. Boom, boom, boom. And the proportions are idealized. Not everybody has these idealized proportions. Some people have their noses are further down, or at least they seem further down. Sometimes they look further up, and all this other stuff. This is a general good idea. You don't have to measure everything, but a lot of the time, if you're messing up, if things aren't quite looking quite right, it's usually because the proportions are just too far off the norm. If you're doing cartoony stuff, you want to play around with the proportions so that they're not idealized at all. In fact, you want to make them, the less idealized, the more interesting the character. With human proportions, with more realistic proportions, the more the closer they are to ideal proportions, the more beautiful the person is. But it's less likely that they'll look like the person. So if you're trying to capture likenesses, you actually have to measure an individual's proportions manually, and maybe I'll talk about that at some point. Okay, so far we have this kind of triangular lay-in. This is a lay-in. This is just if you're going to if there's a figure and you have the head kind of placed in and you want to know if he's looking up or down or whatever, you put this and it kind of gives you a slight direction. Okay, but it just seems so flat and graphic, and it doesn't, and is everything profile? No, that's not it. Actually, in fact, once you have kind of like the direction of the head, this is going down, this is going, this is looking forward, this is looking, and if you want to make it a 3/4, then that's when you add like the little T section, and then you start solidifying this. This is simply meant to be a fast lay-in of a head, right? That's the idea. So, but once you have to start actually adding real stuff in it, real construction, that's when either Loomis, Bridgman, comes in. That's when you want to start really understanding at least the general placement of things. So I'm going to go over that really quickly, and I'm going to be using, right now I'm going to be using Loomis because it's just a good idea for general placement. So this is lay-in. So you lay in your head. This is the equivalent of saying, here's an arm, and here's a leg. Right? And here's a foot. So it's a graphic, quick gestural representation of where you're going to. Here's the arm and blah, blah, blah. And here's the body. So it's a really quick gestural representation. It's a placement area. This is where I'm going to generally place it. This is kind of the general direction. But but what we're dealing with now is, of course, we're starting to tie things down. So we want to start tying things down a little bit more. So the second part of the tying things down is general proportion and placement of the body parts, and that would be in the Loomis. What kind of? Yeah, I want to delete that layer. That layer looked like, I think it was a vector layer. Yeah, I think I pressed the vector layer. Okay. So the Loomis method is ball, and we have the front, and you know it's the front because we're going to put the T shape looking straight. We have a profile, which I already did, where this gets cut in half, and here's a T shape, and this gets cut in half. This goes below the ball and it connects. I don't know if this is going to connect right because I haven't done the proportions, but this is my general. I'll just do this because the proportions may be a little off, whatever. And then 3/4 would be like this. See, now they're looking at 3/4 this way. So there you have it, and then you so you have this and this and this should be equal, and then this and this should be equal, and then that's where you get the jaw. And with the Loomis method, you have to cut off the ball on the sides here. This gets sliced off. Okay, this part goes away. Now this is a very skinny looking head, but it's supposed to go away, right? This up here and this should be equal. This and this should be equal. Probably not equal. And then this and this should be equal. This is why the proportions are important, so you don't get very skinny heads. That's better. And then it would be about the same with this. Boom, boom, boom. All these are equal. This we have to cut. See how we remember we cut this off? This is now the cut. And this is where the jaw begins. This goes straight down through. This is going straight and across, because there's a jaw back here like that. And then we have this. This is where it would have been cut, but it's not. But again, this is important. We get to cut this part out so that we have not a ball here. This is gone. So this is the general proportions. This is the brow line. This is the bottom of the nose where the nose connects. This is if you put the halfway point between this and this is the bottom of the lip. The bottom of the lip, not the top of the lip, the bottom of the lip. These are the general proportions. Then right about here we have the eyes. This is where the eyes would go. Okay, so that is that is the general, and again, this isn't dogma, this isn't an absolute, this is just general placement of features where they're going to be. Every single one of the features, once we start getting into them, has their own planes and complexities. So the very first thing we want to be able to do is to generally place the face where the facial features where they need to be. By the way, the ears, the top of the brow, the bottom of the nose is the general placement of the ears. The general placement of the ears. So this goes back in space. This goes back in space. I should have made it. I shouldn't have made it straight. I should have made it this go this way and back in space. This is coming in and it's going back in space. Let's just make it round for now. It's a little bit more complicated, but let's make it round for now. And then this would be where the ears would go, and then here would be where the ears, top of the ears, bottom of the ears, top of the ears, bottom of the ears. Okay, so remember this is important. I should have said something about how we're thinking about this in space. All right, so this is in a nutshell the general head. The general head, the beginnings of a general head construction. Okay, when we're thinking about this, once we're done kind of generally placing all this stuff in, we're going to go into Bridgman, because Bridgman breaks all the parts down into really clear, in a very clear way. So we're going to start with this. So I'm going to want you to do like this kind of an exercise where you're generally placing all these things in where they need to be. And I think what I've missed is a 3/4 back. The 3/4 back would be similar to the 3/4 front, where we draw past. We're drawing behind now. So we're looking at this. This is in the back. But now we have to wrap around and across, right? This gets cut. This goes in space. This is halfway. So now we have this. This is the jaw. Over here we have this top of the head. So if these are correct, and this is the bottom of the jaw here, this is the important part, because now you have to connect it, and you connect it by kind of drawing a line all the way across, kind of drawing a triangle here. Or is it like this? It's like this. This is really tricky. You have to like kind of finesse it and fudge around with it until it looks right. But it's the bottom of the, it's a connection like this, right? Like you have this side of the jaw, this side of the jaw. 'Cause you won't see that, because there's the neck comes in and connects back here, and you won't really see the rest of that. But this is generally what happens. And then this is where the ear is, right? And this gets cut. I just made this a box, so it's clear what's happening. So this, I think overall, this is probably the most difficult, because there's no like clear formula. There's a lot of fudging and fixing and making sure everything looks good. Also, the chin, how wide this chin is, takes a little bit of play. It's the same thing. It's the same thing here. Is this chin too big? Is it too small? Where's my straight, that sort of thing. You're still trying to look through in space, try to see where everything should fit and how it'll fit, and there's a lot of playing around. So there is no like absolute, we're not computers, we're not going to have like a perfect rotating thing. It's still, there's still a lot of play, there's still a lot of artistic interpretation, there's decisions you're making. Is it going to look, what looks good, what doesn't look good? There's still all of this stuff is general, so that there's a place where you put things in general, but it's not absolute. You're not a robot. If it doesn't look organic, if it looks really weird, fix it. Make it. Don't be a slave to any formula. Just be what you should be a slave to is this the result you like? That at the end. Everything else is just a guide to try to get you there, to try to solve the problems. And the problem is, what is the result I want? Okay. So you're probably going to want to make just do this exercise just to wrap your head around the formula, right? And then, but this isn't enough. Like then we have to go and look at some heads, and I will actually let me grab one really quick and show you an example. Okay, so I'm pretty sure you remember this guy. We used this guy in one of our on torso drawings here, but he's we're gonna draw his head, right? So I'm going to show you an example of how I draw the head. If we're looking at reference, if we're going to be doing just the lay-in of the head, and again, I'm going to give you 5 of these, and then you can do these 5. So there's a few ways you can start this. You can start it like, here's the gesture, and see how at this point I'm looking at this, this, and this, and this is the gesture of the head. So here is why the Houston head is that's how it works in practice, right? You just kind of, here's the neck connecting to the pit of the neck here. He's looking down, and then we can just kind of put in the direction of the face, where it's facing. Okay, and then so this is so we've already got a lot of information here. Then we can boom, boom, boom if we want to do that, and then we have this. So that would be the way that I would very quickly gesturally approach just putting in the head. And this ear is, at this point, see, notice how because it's just general placing, it doesn't mean that it's accurate. It just gives you a starting off point. Okay, so then you kind of play around. You do that. This is kind of the way that I tend to approach things when working on this sort of thing. Is I begin with this again, always gesture, gesture, gesture. Always begin with gesture. But this is inaccurate. Already this is already off, right? All I needed was this gesture here, in the direction of the head, where the head kind of turns, and then all this other placement stuff is already off. Like, I'm already off. Okay, that's when you at this point, now that you have a general placement of where you're going to have everything, that's probably where you want to start introducing a little bit more of the Loomis head, where you kind of start going, okay, ball of the head. Where's the center? The center's about here. Now the T shape is extremely important, because what the T shape does, depending on if it's looking up, if it's looking down, the T shape is going to a vanishing point. I mean, this cross section is going to a vanishing point, right? This is going to a different vanishing point. So this is extremely important. How you place these two tell you the direction and the perspective of the head. So everything here has to go to the vanishing point, wherever it is, completely off the page, and this needs to go in that direction. And then if we're doing the side, this is going to go to whatever vanishing point is way the blazes off into the distance, right? So all of that is all of these things are very important. Like the T shape is extremely important. In giving you the idea of the spatial relationship, the space that you're dealing with, the dimensions, the perspective that you're dealing with. Okay, let me reduce this even more. Let me make this less vague. Dang. Okay, and then I'm actually gonna, man, I'm running out of colors that work with this tan. Maybe I'll use this. So just because I've drawn so much stuff on this, I should have changed the layer when I was doing the examples, but actually I'm gonna make this easier on myself. I'm gonna duplicate this layer. I'm going to delete everything that I don't need. There we go. So now we've got this general direction. This is supposed to be the brow. So we got the top of the head, brow, and then the nose generally here, and then the chin is probably here. Then turning of the head. See how this is right next to the neck? So we're going to want to do that. We want to make sure that this is turned here. This is coming down like this. And then we adjust the neck. It's right here coming off of this. There's and then we go and connect this like this. And we want to have the ear. This goes through across here like that. So we're also noticing how much space there is between the bottom of the ear and the bottom of the chin here. So the lay-in isn't perfect. That's why you come in and you make the adjustments, right? And that's what we're going to be doing. What do you do with this, or where is this? We'll deal with it later. Like all of this stuff is actually extremely complicated stuff. Just what you want is a general idea. This is turned into a box, right? This is kind of boxy. There comes a point somewhere around here where there's a, this is going in this direction, this is going in this direction, and somewhere around here these two lines are going to converge. And this is just an abstraction, because later on we're going to go into breaking the brow shape, the nose shape, the eye shapes, the chin, this jawline. All this stuff is going to get extremely complicated. But the most important thing that we need to do right now is the general lay-in and the general placement of stuff. This is this top of the brow. It came all the way across. This is meant to be the top of the. Don't go too far up. Don't go too far down. You gotta give enough space here. But this is the hairline. This is where the hairline begins. If it helps, let me see. What was it that Houston had? There was a Houston liked to connect this and make he liked to do a mask, and this would be the hairline. This should be further out because this is a egg shape. He liked to do a mask. We don't have to do this mask, but if it helps, you could do the mask. And this is kind of the hairline. I mean, the hair is probably going to do something like this. There's all kinds of stuff happening here once you start working on this stuff, but this head shape, you're kind of trying to capture what this is, and so you're looking at where things are placed so that you can more accurately place them on your lay-in. But that's all at this point. That's all we're going to be doing, is trying to just put in the general placement of the brow, the nose, the mouth. This is not the only way. This is not the only proportion to do a face. Some people where the T section is not the brow, it's the eye line. And that is a different set of proportions. I don't know if anybody, I mean, like I said, this is the Loomis formula. And one of the reasons I'm using the Loomis formula is because I was talking about drawing a head with another person that I'm coaching, and they wanted to do the Loomis formula and kind of forced me to do Loomis. And because of that, I ended up like learning how to do Loomis when I never ever actually did it before, used him before. In any case, when we're looking at a character in this way, the problem is that if you measure all of these precise, this is gonna turn out wrong, because what you're doing is flattening. So that's another problem. This is actually the top of the head is closer to us. So these proportions are closer to us than this proportion here. So for here, this brow to the bottom, to the tip of to where the nose connects, is actually not exactly the same. This is slightly smaller than this. If you were looking at this straight on, we're looking at it in the most precise, perfect way. So these proportions should be equidistant. But in perspective, when this is receding in space, these are no longer equidistant. This is, I mean, if the camera was pointing straight at him, it would be equidistant. But now that he's looking down, that means that everything is receding in space. That means that this and this is longer than this and this, and which is longer than this and this. So this is small, this is shorter, and this is big, this is slightly less short, and then this is even shorter still. So now the proportions are a little bit off because of space, because we're looking at these things in space. So the tricky part is not to flatten it, but to work with the receding in space of these proportions. So this and this should be slightly bigger than this. So this isn't perfectly equal. And then this and this is a little bit shorter than this. Because they're slightly because now the perspective is changing. So what we want to acknowledge that things change in space once we're turning ahead in space like that. We want to acknowledge that those things change. And again, this is all observation, this is all understanding, and this is all up to you. Does it look right? Does it not look right? Why isn't it looking right? That sort of thing. So we're not machines that are going to get machine precise with this. That's one of the reasons why proportion stuff is kind of it's kind of tricky. A lot of the time it's a little bit better just to eyeball. But if you have the proportion notion or rule in mind, the rule of thumb in mind, then you can make a better judgment about what you're observing. You don't want to be a slave to the proportions. You want to use the proportions as a rule of thumb for judgment about what you're observing. Okay, so that's why I sometimes don't. I'm sometimes kind of almost anti-proportion. I'm almost against learning proportions. So once you've kind of generally got the lay-in down, when you're starting to try to solidify this, this is important, because if you mess this up, no matter what you put on the face, it's going to look awful. It's going to look awful, and you're going to have to make adjustments and adjustments and adjustments and fixing and adjustments and fixing, and sometimes that's just the way it is. And sometimes, if you get it as solid as you can from the start, it won't be that big a deal. Okay, so that's it from me, and I will talk to you next time. All right, bye. So I'm happy to announce that I now have a new drawing lesson called Drafu Guide to Sketching and Gesture Foundations. It's the beginning of the level 2 information that people have been asking me for the drawing website, which will teach you where to start drawing, what to draw when you draw, how to draw from observation, how to draw from imagination, how to draw what you envision, and how to discover what you ought to envision if you don't have anything specific in mind. So if you find any of this interesting, you could follow the link that you see, or you can go to thedrawingwebsite.com, look under level 2, and you'll find a link there.